The New York mayor election taking place today is drawing international attention because of one candidate whose rise could alter the fate of America's largest city. The man at the center of this contest is Zohran Mamdani, a state assemblyman from Queens whose unapologetically progressive platform has made him both a darling of the activist left and a lightning rod for critics who warn that his policies would push New York down a dangerous path.
Who is ready for Palestinian freedom?
Mamdani has built his career on a platform that openly challenges the foundations of law, order, and fiscal responsibility, positioning himself as a champion of causes that many New Yorkers see as dangerously out of touch with the city's realities. He has repeatedly called for defunding the police, insisting that money should be stripped from law enforcement and redirected to social programs, a proposal that may sound noble in theory, but in practice threatens to dismantle the very institution tasked with keeping the streets safe. This is not a minor policy tweak. It is a deliberate attempt to weaken the backbone of public security in a city already struggling with rising disorder. At a time when subway assaults, retail theft, and violent crime have rattled residents and eroded confidence in public safety, Mamdani's vision would mean fewer officers on patrol, slower response times, and a climate where criminals feel emboldened to act without fear of consequence. The lesson from past experiments in other cities is clear. When police are undermined, crime rises, neighborhoods deteriorate, and ordinary citizens, especially working-class families who cannot simply move away, pay the steepest price. By framing law enforcement as the problem rather than part of the solution, Mamdani risks turning New York into a case study of what happens when ideology is allowed to override common sense. The ideological lineage of Mamdani's politics can be traced to the political movement embodied by figures such as Ilhan Omar. In Congress, Omar has supported expansive immigration reforms, including co-sponsoring the New Way Forward Act, which sought to roll back criminal penalties for immigration violations and limit deportations, a move opponents said blurred the distinction between legal and illegal residency. She was also a leading voice behind the Policing Act, which aimed to restrict qualified immunity for officers and overhaul police practices nationwide, a proposal critics argued would weaken law enforcement at a time of rising crime. Beyond legislation, Omar has repeatedly drawn fire for her foreign policy positions, including her calls to cut US military aid to Israel and her controversial 2021 remarks that appeared to equate the United States and Israel with groups like Hamas and the Taliban, comments that prompted bipartisan condemnation and forced her to walk them back. She has also introduced amendments to reduce the Pentagon budget by as much as 10%, a move critics said would undermine national security. These initiatives, while popular among activist bases, have been criticized for ignoring fiscal realities, undermining public safety, and weakening America's global standing. Omar's record illustrates the broader agenda Mamdani is aligned with, a vision of governance that prioritizes redistribution and symbolic justice over stability and security. For New Yorkers wary of rising crime and economic strain, the prospect of importing this agenda into City Hall is cause for alarm. The comparison that looms largest, however, is not with Washington, but with London. When Sadiq Khan became mayor in 2016, he pledged inclusivity and progressive reform, yet the city's trajectory has been marked by rising violence and declining livability. Knife crime surged by more than 50%, with youth stabbings hitting record highs, while the Metropolitan Police, strained by budget pressures and political hostility, struggled to maintain order. Londoners have also faced soaring housing costs, higher transport fares, and increased local taxes, all while their mayor devoted political capital to symbolic fights over culture and climate, rather than the daily realities of safety and affordability. Another layer of criticism against London under Khan has been the handling of grooming gangs and the perception of soft or two-tier policing. Despite repeated denials that such networks operated in the capital, the Metropolitan Police recently reopened 9,000 cases linked to grooming gangs when watchdogs found serious failures in how allegations of child sexual exploitation were investigated. For many observers, the question is whether New York is about to repeat London's mistakes. The parallels are striking. A charismatic progressive leader promising justice and reform, a city already grappling with crime and economic pressures, and a political climate where symbolic gestures often overshadow practical governance. If Mamdani were to win, New York could see a weakened police force, expanded welfare obligations, and a governing philosophy that prioritizes ideology over pragmatism. The consequences would not be confined to the 5 boroughs. As the financial and cultural capital of the United States, New York's trajectory influences national debates on crime, immigration, and urban policy. A Mamdani administration would embolden progressives across the country while deepening the divide with those who argue that safety, fiscal discipline, and the interests of citizens must come first. His critics, particularly from the Republican side, see him as a radical whose policies would erode public safety, overburden taxpayers, and drive the city towards the same decline witnessed in London. The outcome will determine not only who occupies City Hall, but whether New York chooses to double down on progressive experiments or chart a course that prioritizes order and responsibility. For a city that has long been a symbol of American resilience, the choice could not be more consequential.